It happened again. Oh, yeah. 2 minutes before I'm ready to go live, my main monitor down here, I've got two monitors on either side, which I have my show notes open, and I've got all my web pages over here. And right in the middle is where my OBS software sits, so I can control the show and the cameras and what goes out. Okay? Fine. 2 minutes before we go live, guess what happens? That monitor in which I control the whole show, zoop, starts to flitz out and glitz. So I push everything over to the side, which is a total pain in the ass. And now I got 5 things sitting over here where there should be only 1 or 2. Yeah, that's the kind of show we've started off with today. It's going to be a challenge, but we'll get through it. Who cares? Much worse than Watergate. This is unbe-freaking-leavable. We're going to talk about this Democrat mess. Edgy humor and young men and how it's affecting them. You won't believe this story. And goodbye, pennies. Have a nice life. I know you already know pennies are going away, but this is it. This is the last year. They're done after this. And, of course, on Sunday, because of the stupidity of Congress and the president, who can't seem to get off his ass and do anything with an executive order, which I found out is possible, to get rid of this putting the clocks back crap. We don't need it. It's useless. The reasons for it have long since ended. No reason at all for this junk, and yet on and on we go with this, and nobody has the testicles to actually stand up and say something about it, which is a shame. Really, really is a shame. Anyway, that's the name of that tune, and I'm sticking with it. What else? Oh, man, we got so much stuff going on today. Insane. 100 times worse than Watergate's. That's what they're saying. And you know what? They're right, my friends. The 3 biggest revelations from this Arctic frost document dump further reveal how Biden and his administration, of course, we all know Biden was just a bowl of lumpy oatmeal, wasn't doing anything. Other people were controlling the whole administration. They weaponized the DOJ and the FBI to tap GOP phones and spy on conservative groups and individuals. Folks, this is huge. Like I said in the headline, it is 100 times Watergate. Sabotage is going on. Senator Chuck Grassley revealed that yesterday, former President Biden's corrupt Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, who were equally as corrupt at the time, compiled what's being described as an enemies list. An enemies list. Republicans, all on the list, and they were targeted, including wiretapping of phones. Several high-ranking Republicans had their phones tapped, part of the Get Trump lawfare. Oh, man. Good morning, Danny. Excited for Halloween tomorrow? My not make tomorrow's show, as I have tons to get ready. It's okay. We'll forgive you once a year that you don't have time, because more important things like Halloween are there, and believe me, I understand completely. All right, let's get back to it. Grassley revealed more than 1,700 pages of documents provided by whistleblowers, shining a light bright as hell on the Arctic frost inquiry. Now, Arctic frost was an investigation led by the Biden admin to target Republicans in key battleground states. General Merrick Garland claiming that fraudulent certificates of electors' votes submitted to the archivist of the United States for Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Ray also asserted these votes were part of a grand conspiracy to obstruct the certification of the 2020 election. There it is, plain as the nose on your face. Ted Cruz's landline was tapped by the DOJ and the FBI. Smith secretly obtained phone record data from at least 8 senators and 1 congressman. He says, I've recently been informed by Verizon that at least 11 members with Verizon accounts were affected. And that includes a hard line for Senator Cruz's office and a staffer's cell phone for former Senator Loeffler. Adding, Smith backed down from the subpoena request placed to AT&T for Cruz's cell phone records after the company challenged whether or not the subpoenas were even legal. Cruz said that AT&T's counsel advised the company not to comply with the subpoena because it violated the speech and debate clause of the Constitution. Cruz said the subpoenas were accompanied by an order from Judge James Boasberg, who's been issuing nationwide subpoenas to stop Trump from implementing the mandate given to him by you and I, the voters. Judge Boasberg issued an order for AT&T and signed that order prohibiting AT&T from informing me of this subpoena for at least a year. And Judge Boasberg gave the basis for that order. I'm going to quote from the order Judge Boasberg signed. The court finds reasonable grounds to believe that such disclosure will result in destruction of or tampering with evidence, intimidation of potential witnesses, and serious jeopardy to the investigation. Now, Cruz says there is precisely 0 evidence to conclude that he's likely to destroy or tamper with evidence or to intimidate eyewitnesses. 0 evidentiary basis for that. This order, an absolute abuse of power, weaponizing the legal system, as they did time and time again. Senator Ron Johnson says there's a concern that FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi are being sabotaged currently from within. Didn't elaborate any further about that, but you can see how that very well might be true. The records now making public were not obtained from the agency. They were gotten through a whistleblower. So we need more whistleblowers. Come on, guys. Those protections are put in place for a reason. Men, women inside these agencies who've got a little bit of integrity. You want to see that integrity and the credibility of the Department of Justice and the FBI? You want to bring that credibility back? Then you need to step up. Come forward. I think right now Kash Patel and Pam Bondi probably overwhelmed by all the mess they're trying to clean up. There are still partisan actors who are digging in, and they are trying to this very moment to try to sabotage the efforts of these people who are trying to do the right and just thing. The entire FBI and DOJ was trying to spy on the entire GOP. These whistleblower documents, they show Biden subpoenaed bank records, donor lists, emails, of a bunch of major conservative organizations and leaders, including the Trump campaign, the RNC, Save America PAC, America First Policy Institute, Conservative Partnership Institute, and even My Pillow. Yeah. According to Cruz, 20% of the Republicans in the U.S. Senate were the targets of this fishing expedition done by the Democrats. They did so in a complete contravention, I should say, of the U.S. Constitution. That is Ted Cruz. Separation of powers, speech and debate clause of free speech, the basic right to privacy. We need to have hearings, serious hearings. We need to have arrests. You think Watergate was a mess? You ain't seen nothing, my friends, until you dig into this story. It is absolutely unbelievable. Follow up on this. I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll bring you the latest. But this is an absolute nightmare. Nightmare. Here's one for you. Back to Biden again. A Biden-appointed judge shows absolute bias in a ruling on the DOJ investigation of transgender care doctors. This week, a district court judge tasked with hearing a legal case on the Trump admin Justice Department's investigation of physicians who practice transgender care, write prescriptions for gender-affirming medicines for patients under their care. And when deciding on cases, judges are supposed to be bound by the Constitution as its basis for making decisions. You think. Well, it's not really clear that happened on Monday. U.S. District Court, Western District of Washington at Seattle, Judge Jamal Whitehead ruled that a wide-ranging subpoena the Justice Department served in October on Queer Doc, a medical practice offering gender-affirming care online, cannot be forced because of the demand. The demand was not part of a legit law enforcement investigation. Whitehead, a Biden appointee, no surprise there, said it was apparent the subpoena is intended to advance Donald Trump's goal of wiping out such care for people with gender dysphoria. This is not speculation about hidden motives. It is the administration's explicit agenda. The government seeks the intended effect of its executive orders, Whitehead wrote, and these subpoenas to downsize or eliminate all gender-affirming care. No clear evidence of improper purpose could exist than the government's own repeated declarations that seek to end the very practice it claims to merely be investigating. Notice that while the decision by this judge on Monday, it happened Monday, but it wasn't officially released until Tuesday. Now, to a lot of people with common sense, which is rare these days, except for you and I, that reads like an activist political state, doesn't it? It sounds like it. It's not a sober judicial ruling on a case. This is some activist political bullshit. Both Attorney General Bondi and the DOJ weighed in on Wednesday. Yesterday, new statements after this ruling came out. Bondi didn't mince words. She said medical professionals and organizations that mutilate children in the service of a warped ideology will be held accountable by the Department of Justice. Good. Justice Department made a statement, said, as Attorney General Bondi made clear, the Department of Justice will use every legal and law enforcement tool available to protect innocent children from being mutilated under the guise of care. And by the way, if this judge's name rings a bell, it's the same liberal judge who back in May was being forced to rescind his order setting forth a compliance framework for the Trump admin that required them to begin the process of settling roughly 12,000 refugees in a week's time. That happened after a slapdown from the Ninth Circuit, more than one time, by the way. And now the Trump administration's been very transparent about fighting for parental rights, protecting our children from mutilation and harm from trans medical practices, all this bullcrap, hormone-altering drugs. That's partly why President Trump won in November. Much like the case on transgender athletes, a victory for parental rights conservatives with a SCOTUS decision back in June, it's likely why this lawsuit is also going to end up in front of the highest court in the land eventually. This is a nightmare, and these Biden judges are still at it. And if you need more evidence that the Democrats have lost their mind, I know you probably don't. But, sorry, had to take a little coffee break there. I'm so ashamed this woman actually represents my former state, the place where I grew up. I was born and grew up in Connecticut, southern New England. Where this Rosa DeLauro freak came from is beyond me. And she's thrown a complete tantrum about the shutdown. And then the freak faces some rather harsh facts. I love it when people get their FO moments. It's probably safe to say this purple-haired goofball, Rosa DeLauro, is a rather unique character. Interesting wardrobe choices. Of course, as I mentioned, the purple hair. She's 82 years old, this woman. Retire, damn it. You're a freak. You're embarrassing. Just another Democrat who's been around forever. Another one who should retire. She's been in her seat representing Connecticut since 1991. Are you bagging me? Well, she threw a massive tantrum on Tuesday. Gathered with other members of the House, the 28th day of the Schumer shutdown, she went into full-blown Trump derangement syndrome, tried to blame Trump as she spoke about money for the SNAP program, claimed Trump was illegally blocking SNAP funds from going out. This woman, seriously, has just absolutely lost her mind.
Of the Empowerment Control Act of 1974. The contingency funding that we set aside for SNAP is not optional spending. It is required by the law. We appropriated that money for this purpose. The White House must spend it, and what they are doing right now, blocking these funds from going out, is illegal. As a matter of fact, on October 1st, they took $750 million from this fund to deal with with paying benefits in Puerto Rico and providing administrative costs to other states. So they acknowledge that this fund can be used in order to deal with SNAP benefits. There is nothing stopping the Trump administration from making sure that every single one of the 42 million Americans, 16 million children, 8 million seniors, 4 million people with disabilities, 1.2 million veterans receive nutrition assistance in November. And we are at a cost of living crisis with skyrocketing food costs. And President Trump is doing right now is using the fear that so many working people have about where their next meal is coming from as a political bargaining chip. Does anyone?
Yeah. Okay. Purple-haired geek freak. She says the Trump admin was required to pay the money out of a contingency fund. Well, wait a second. First of all, it's the Democrats who voted 13 times not to fund the government. The funds that normally cover this are in limbo because of the Democrats, not President Trump. She wants SNAP to be covered under an emergency contingency fund, while the Democrats are holding back money hostage in order to advance their political agenda. This fund is not supposed to pay for Democrats' political games. It is a truly wild take from this idiot woman. The Democrats are the ones who created this. Who doesn't know that? There is a simple way to solve this problem. You know it as well as I do. Open the government. It isn't Trump voting no. It's you, Democrats. It's you, Rosa. It isn't Trump pushing some political agenda that's stopping funding here. It's you. You are laying out the harm. You're still voting no. Your fellow Democrats have said it's about using the situation for leverage. So DeLauro doesn't have a leg to stand on here. Not one. Democrats thought they could play this political game, blaming Trump and the Republicans. The Republicans' approval, guess what? It's been going up regularly. It's improved since the shutdown. So, this game that you're playing, Democrats, it is working against you. And the sooner y'all wake up and realize it, the better off we all will be. Denny was 4 years old in 1991. Really? I was 103 in 1991, I think. Or somewhere around there, I'm sure. Hey, Blackout coffee. That, my friends, is what is in this mug. That is the best coffee you're going to find on the planet. And you know why? Fresh beans, grown locally, local co-ops, American farmers. They are a conservative company that supports all the great stuff you and I are into. Blackout coffee. Oh, yeah, Blackout Coffee. Check them out. Use the link in our show notes. First-time customers, you get 20% off when you use the code J20, Jay20. All kinds of fresh roasted beans, and now they offer ground in some of their most popular roasts. So check them out. Blackout Coffee, do yourself a favor. Always full-bodied, full-flavored, never ever bitter. Blackout Coffee is an amazing company. We drink nothing else in this house, And they have been a sponsor on this show for a long time. Thank you, John. We appreciate it. Please do check them out. It helps to support the company and this show. Blackout Coffee. Use the link down there in our show notes and use the code J20 for 20% off your first order at checkout at Blackout Coffee. All right. Live by the media, die by the media. I'm so glad she's got a story in the news because it's been so long since I had the chance to say Karine Jean-Pierre. Well, like everybody else in the Biden admin, she allowed the media to use her. They're still being used, but she's finding out, finally, that it comes with a price. Karine Jean-Pierre, former White House press secretary and living voodoo doll, learning in real time what a whole lot of us have known for years. The entire Biden administration, including Jean-Pierre herself, was a production for the almost dead news media, only made possible by the industry cashing in on its last remaining ounces of credibility, which is now completely gone. She's currently promoting her memoir. Oh, yeah, I'm going to rush out and buy a copy of that crap. She declares herself independent of the Democrat Party. And she justifies that announcement by attacking anyone who made her time in the White House difficult. Politico's widely read Playbook newsletter Tuesday said the book tour ain't going so well. Well, that's true, but it's not entirely Jean-Pierre's fault. The people giving her a hard time right now, that is to say, the media, are the same ones who did everything they could to keep her and her boss and her party in power in 2024. And that meant a lot of lying on their behalf. A lot. Jean-Pierre is only finding out now that lying no longer serves a purpose. Like Biden, Harris, the rest of that embarrassing administration, Jean-Pierre simply a tool of the media to keep Donald Trump out of the White House and his millions of supporters like you and I suppressed. The production was a success in 2020, obviously, but the pregnancy, an unbelievable train wreck, almost broke the country in half. Anybody could see it, even as the media took on the huge effort of telling voters for months that up was down, left was right, Kamala could be president. They said prices weren't really increasing, that the border was actually under control, and that inner cities had truly never been safer. Remember that? Biden, for all his faults, was a mastermind executive. Yeah. The adults were back in charge. That was my favorite one. And Jean-Pierre was the first, importantly, black woman and lady of color and openly queer. Her words, not mine. Everything was historical, impressive, they said. And then they lost the election, with the Democrats tossed out by voters. The production had run its course, and it was over. Now, to be fair to this little freaky woman, there was no formal announcement by the media that they were done trying to make her look good. It was a rather anticlimactic finale. She was kind of caught off guard by the reviews of her book. The Washington Post, a write-up called Jean-Pierre an artifact of age that looks recent on paper but feels prehistoric in practice. What a great line. The age of pantsuits, the word empowerment, the musical Hamilton, the cheap therapeutic entreaties to work on yourself and lean in to various corporate abysses. She said notably she subjected herself to a humiliating Q&A with the New Yorker, in which she fought like hell to have her chutzpah, tried and true appeals to her identity. Said, I don't even feel seen by the party because I think they're throwing the LGBTQ community under the bus. You think? They're not fighting enough for migrants and immigrants. Jean-Pierre might have missed the very recent episode in which the Democrat leader in the Senate flew to Central America using taxpayer dollars for the purpose of re-importing a professional illegal alien from his home country. Remember that? Yeah. Just like everybody else in the Biden admin, Jean-Pierre used the media and allowed the media to use her. They're still being used. And she is finding out that comes with a very dear price tag. Welcome, Jean-Pierre. Enjoy. She writes a book. Oh, Manischewitz. Did you see this? I want to know when I see a headline like this. What exactly is this freak criminal up to? Bill Gates, yeah, that Bill Gates, has done a complete 180 on climate change. So, Bill, does that mean you're no longer going to go block the sun? Oh, man. He says, it's not the end of the world. He has apparently completely reversed his view on climate change, saying it will not lead to humanity's demise. Years this freak has claimed that rising global temperatures is going to be the end of the world. He wrote in a blog post this week saying climate activists should shift away from the doomsday outlook. Although, this is him writing, although climate change will have serious consequences, particularly for people in the poorest countries, it will not lead to humanity's demise. He wrote, people will be able to live and thrive in most places on the earth for the foreseeable future. And now he's arguing that climate activists should measure success by their impact on human welfare rather than their impact on the temperature of the earth. I don't know where this comes from. Just all of a sudden he's decided to change his mind. His latest memo comes just 4 years after he published a book called How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, in which he outlined a very clear, technological-driven path to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And now he says, it's all right. It's no big deal. What the hell? Oh, these billionaires and millionaires. Incredible. All right. The penny's final century. It is time to say goodbye to that old friend, the copper coin, the copper penny. Some deaths come with a lot of pomp and circumstance and ceremonies. Others simply fade away unannounced, like an old workhouse let out to pasture. And apparently that is how the American penny is going to die. No last ride, no parade, just the slow silence of, I don't give a crap. The penny sat at the bottom of every pocket and purse for generations, seriously. Clinking against nickels and dimes like old friends. Kids dropped them in gumball machines. Grandfathers stacked them away in neat rows for rolls and rolls of pennies, and shopkeepers kept a jar. Remember, take a penny, leave a penny? Oh, yeah. Something to be so humble that the cornerstone of everyday exchanges is now an afterthought. Nobody cares. Only the U.S. government could lose money while making money. In an era where inflation makes a $5 bill seem rather light these days, stamping a coin with 1 cent using zinc, copper plating, and the labor costs becomes an economic comedy. Dinosaurs in D.C. are probably calling it a tradition, but the rest of us, we would be calling it nonsense. The thing is, it's not just cost. And by the way, how much does it cost to mint a penny? 4 cents. Yeah, it costs 4 cents to make a 1 cent coin. But it's not just that it's a penny. People have moved on. Jiggling pockets with a being replaced by a tap-to-pay credit card or debit card, apps on your phone. Try to give your coins to a grocery clerk, will usually get a frown, if not a tongue-sucking, They don't want your handfuls of pennies and coins anymore. They slow down the line. This society obsessed with speed. The penny is the speed bump that reminds us just how much slower and perhaps saner our world used to be. I'm a big fan of the penny. One of our founding fathers, Ben Franklin, the man responsible for the proverb, "A penny saved was a lesson learned," he would be shaking his head today. A penny saved doesn't mean anything more unless you collect a couple of hundred of them, which might buy you, a single stick of gum? But in Ben's world, thrift was a virtue. Savings were tangible, hard-earned, counted 1 coin at a time. Killing the penny doesn't feel like we're burying that virtue. I know the penny's obsolete, but frankly, these days, so is patience. And that hasn't stopped the market from trading it for convenience. If we lose the smallest measure of currency, a penny, we might also lose the smallest and most pure measure of value. Once the penny was a teacher, the first coin a child would recognize, The first sound of the clank at the bottom of a bank, a little piggy bank. The disappearing of the piggy bank. The disappearance of the penny is a kind of a quiet civic lesson. How quickly we forget the little things that built us to what we are today. I know we don't need pennies anymore. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, they've already gone ahead and scrapped their 1-cent coins. Prices rounded, citizens adapted, life went on. America, the at times stubborn melting pot that we are, resisted for two reasons, really, out of habit and sentiment. Well, they hardly respect any of the modern economy. Math, when not being racist to some, causes habits to crumble. You produce a single coin, costs 4 times its worth. Nostalgia becomes kind of a luxury at that point. Already, retailers are facing coin shortages. A lot of places you'll see signs that say exact change only. We're not seeing a conspiracy. The U.S. Mint just can't justify keeping pace. Rounding is coming whether you like it or not. The ubiquitous price tag that includes the 99 cents, $3.99, $50.99, $20.99, and that's going to be the next thing to go bye-bye. Along with the psychological benefit that you're not paying $30 for that. You're paying $29.99, but for want of a penny. All right, we're a little early, but we are done. That wraps things up for a Thursday. Thank you, folks, for popping by. Appreciate it. Please, if you haven't done it yet, hit the follow button down there. Join us on our Locals channel. We provide behind-the-scenes content there. It's a lot of fun. It's very cheap to subscribe, and it supports this show. Every penny of it goes to help pay our bills around here, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Give us a thumbs up and a like. You can also watch, of course, we're on X, and you'll find a rebroadcast of our show taped VOD on YouTube, our YouTube channel over there. Please subscribe to there at the J. Sheldon Show. We're done. We're out of here. We'll see you for the Friday edition tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.